Hello, IEA President Ken Swanson here, along with Executive Director Audrey Soglin and Chief Legal Counsel Mitch Roth. We want to share some information around Race to the Top. As you may have heard, Illinois is one of the finalists for the Phase 1 decision making. We, along with 15 other states and the District of Columbia, will now go through the next phase of the process to decide who will be getting Race to the Top funds in Phase 1. We'd like to take a few minutes to just kind of walk through where this came from, how IEA engaged, and why. Around Thanksgiving, it became clear that the governor and the State Board of Education and key legislators, many of them our best friends in the House and Senate, were going to be very interested in Illinois' application. It was an opportunity to substantively shape how this process would be taken forward and what would happen both in terms of the memorandums of understanding and the legislation that was passed in January. All too often, you and I have seen the results when we leave it to politicians and bureaucrats to make these decisions. We decided IEA's voice, your voice, needed to be in the room because we needed to be there to protect your rights and advocate for your interests. And I believe we have been able to do that in a way that has been of real benefit to our members. In a few minutes, Mitch Roth and Audrey Soglin are going to explain to you in detail just exactly what went on and how we were able to influence both the MOUs and the legislation in ways that we believe are helpful to you. First, Mitch Roth.
I want to take a few minutes to share with you the role we played in influencing the memorandums of agreement or understanding, the MOUs that are part of the Race to the Top application that the state submitted, as well as the performance evaluation law that was passed to help the state certainly in its application process. First on the MOUs, as I think many of you know, we had a significant effect on the final MOUs when they first came out, when the drafts first came out of those MOUs. They did not sufficiently protect the collective bargaining rights of our local associations and the sanctity of the collective bargaining agreements already in existence. We engaged in some significant negotiations with the state Board of Education, and they adopted verbatim those protections that incorporated them in the final MOUs, so that in no way are our locals in any way giving up any collective bargaining rights or any provisions in their collective bargaining agreements. Moving on to the Performance Evaluation Act, which Ken mentioned a few moments ago, that was passed in January. There are a couple of things that I'd like to highlight about that Act, which we believe are significant in a positive way for our members and our locals. First, as you probably know, in that law there's a staggered implementation dates for school districts over a period of 6 or 7 years. With Race to the Top districts, if in fact the state does get the money, starting earlier, and other districts that did not sign on for Race to the Top starting in either the 15-16 or the 16-17 year. But all of those start dates are contingent on the state and the State Board of Education in particular meeting specific requirements. And if they don't meet those requirements, the implementation dates for school districts are delayed. Some of those requirements are, first, that there must be adequate and sustainable funding for school districts to both develop and implement properly student growth evaluation programs. Second, the state must have in place programs to train and certify evaluators. And third, there must be the technical assistance provided to school districts in both developing and implementing those student growth evaluation plans. A second point is that in terms of the development of these student growth evaluation plans by school districts, that development must be done jointly with the union. This is above and beyond what currently exists in the law. As you probably know, currently the criteria of evaluations, the substance of evaluations, is a permissive subject of bargaining and not even a mandatory subject of bargaining. What we were able to get in this legislation for criteria like the use of student growth to evaluate a teacher is that goes above and beyond even mandatory bargaining and provides that that criteria, how that plan is developed and what will be in it, will be done through a joint committee of teachers chosen by the union and school management, equal representation, and that committee needs to reach agreement on the components of of a student growth evaluation plan. Once they reach an agreement, that's what the district will implement. If for some reason they fail to reach an agreement, those components they fail to agree on will be defaulted in a way to the state recommendation on those components, which will in fact be developed by an advisory committee which we and other unions will have significant representation on. A third point that we think is a very positive development in this law is the fact that anyone who does evaluations starting in the 12-13 year and going beyond it will have to not only be pre-qualified through a test or qualification program that the state board will, in conjunction with an outside entity, administer, but also undergo training to be a quality evaluator. This is something we fought hard for, and as you well know, quality of evaluators has been suspect for years. And the final accomplishment and highlight is the fact that teacher performance evaluations are re-exempted from the Freedom of Information Act under this law. As you know, the new Freedom of Information Act that went into effect at the beginning of this year made those disclosable, teacher evaluations disclosable under FOIA. This Performance Evaluation Act has re-exempted them.